You are watching Park TV. Welcome to Monadnock Tonight with your always entertaining host, Steve Jackson, coming to you live from the studios of the Park Theater in downtown Jaffrey, New Hampshire. Join Steve and his guest today, the 2019 Contoocook Valley Board of Realtors Realtor of the Year, Sadie Halliday. Now sit back, relax, and here's Steve.
Well, good afternoon and early good evening to everyone, and welcome to Monadnock Tonight, brought to you by Park TV and the Park Theater right here in downtown Jaffrey, New Hampshire. It is Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. It is about 5 p.m. here on the East Coast, and this is show number 37. And yes, I am Steve Jackson. I'm the CEO of the Park Theater and your host, and so glad you could join us. Our guest today is a very successful Monadnock region real estate agent who also has a professional fundraising background and much more. But first, a couple of notes about things going on with the theater. The first, we've had a lot of more seat naming going on in our William David Epps Auditorium. And we thank you to all of those folks that have been securing and making a donation to have a seat in the honor of their family or a loved one, or as I've said many times, or of a dog, because we have at least one. And but thank you to all of those generous gifts and your seats are there. And we have well over 200 of them out of 330 have been secured. But one thing to remind you about those in a way, because sometimes you might forget about that, is to with a little promo video that we've shown once or twice, and here it is again. So yes, you can go to park-2020.com, and that's an easy way to sign up for a seat with a credit card. They're $1,000 each, or two payments of $500 each. And there's also a place if you would like to give another gift, a smaller gift or any gift of any kind. If you go to park-2020.com, you can easily take care of it there. Or you can call us right here at the administration office at 532-9300, 532-9300, anytime Monday through Friday. Also, just want to remind everyone that we have got a wonderful free movie at the Park PixFlix virtual little theater. And that this week it is Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr from 1969, I believe, called The Magic Christian. It also has Richard Attenborough, Lawrence Harvey, even Raquel Welch, but the two stars are Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr, who play father and son. And so just go to theparktheater.org and click on the free movies button in the upper right, and you can click on this movie and on some almost 4 dozen other movies that are available to you to watch for free through many times it's through YouTube, sometimes some other resources as we curate these films for you. And we'll have a new one coming up on Thursday as well. So be on the lookout, and we'll tell you on Thursday's show what film that will be for this week. Okay, let's get to the heart of the show. And our first and only guest today is a very busy person with a diverse background. She works for the Bean Group as a real estate agent and has been a top producer for her company. She, as you heard in the intro, she won the 2019 Kentucky Valley Board of Realtors Realtor of the Year Award. So that is an amazing accomplishment. It tells you what she's been keeping herself very busy to be able to do that type of accomplishment. She has been involved with many organizations throughout the Monadnock region and the Jaffrey area, including president of the Jaffrey Ringe Rotary Club and the Ringe Chamber of Commerce, and on the board of the Cathedral of the Pines. She spent 15 years at the Monadnock Community Hospital in philanthropy and community relations. And as I'm sure will come up, her number one vocation is being a mom. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Sadie Halliday to the show. 3, 2, 1. Hello, Sadie.
Hi there, Steve. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you so much for being with us today. And
thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You are a figure of the Monadnock region in many different ways, because you've touched so many areas, and certainly from community efforts that you've done, a lot of people know you. But I don't know if they all know you, because that's why I figured we can take the beginning of the show to find out a little bit more about your background, yourself, and where you grew up, and family, anything and everything. So people know a little bit more about Sadie and how she got to be where she is today. So I'll turn it over momentarily to you and let you comment on that.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you again for inviting me to be here this evening. The Park Theater is a pretty special place. So I was born in Massachusetts. That's where my mother and father were raised, and that's where the majority of my family is in terms of my parents' family. They moved to New Hampshire when I was 5, and I've been in New Hampshire ever since then. I'm the oldest of 5 children, and I have siblings all over the country. My sister Hannah is in Olympic Valley, California. My sister Aggie actually lives here in New Hampshire in Newmarket, and she is nannying my children this summer. So they're very lucky and thrilled to have her. My sister Phoebe is in Denver, Colorado, and then my brother Tim is in South Carolina. So we've got some pretty great places to go and visit when we go and see family. My parents are still in Ringe. They also have a home in Idaho, in Victor, Idaho, which is right near the Grand Tetons in Jackson Hole. So that's also a wonderful place to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. It's about 30 minutes from Jackson Hole, and the Grand Tetons are right in the backyard. So it's pretty special. Yeah. So I grew up in the area, and I went to local schools. Went to college in New Hampshire, and have settled down, and I have 2 children. My daughter Lucy is 14. My daughter Sarah's 11. They go to a small school in Dublin called Mountain Shadows, and they've both been there since day one. And it's a really wonderful community. I can't say enough about it in terms of the education they've received, but also how nurturing. And I'm very fortunate that they've been there. It's a really great community. Yeah.
And then I also understand, as we were talking a little bit before the show, that your home is also home to more than just your children.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
The names, the word steer has been brought up, and your daughter's has a champion steer, correct?
My daughters, both of my daughters have an affection for animals. So we have horses at home. We have working steers at home. We have ducks. We have bunnies. We have a lot of different things that they decide that they're going to bring home. And I generally go along with it because it keeps them busy and it keeps them happy. But my older daughter has trained a number of working steer who then, as they get older, become oxen. She's on her 4th team right now. She has a lot of fun with it. She has a really good time with it. She's been fortunate that as the teams get bigger, she sells them and will start a new team, but she's been able to sell them to dairy farms in New England who are, they really appreciate a team that's been trained by a 4-H'er, and they've gone to work on those farms. So she's been able to find really good homes for them. I suspect that if we weren't able to find good homes for them, we'd have a lot more livestock than we do. Wow. So it's lucky that we've been able to find good homes for them.
And yeah. in terms of, for many years, you were on the philanthropic side of life with the Monadnock Community Hospital. And how did you get there? And then how have you morphed and moved on to where you are today?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story, actually, how I ended up at Monadnock Hospital. I was doing my undergraduate work, and I had a management professor who was friends with somebody who was in human resources at Monadnock Hospital, and they reached out to them for a new community relations position that had come up, and he asked him if he knew of any graduates that would be a good fit. So he connected me directly to them. I interviewed for the position, and 15 years later, I was still there. When I first started at the hospital, it was just Laura Gingras and myself. Laura came in from UMass, and then I was just learning too. So together we worked really hard and built a philanthropy department. When we started, we didn't even have a database. That's how antiquated the systems were. But what's so wonderful about this community is that people truly embrace their community hospital, and they recognize the need of having that healthcare close to home. I think one of the things that makes Monadnock so special is that they don't try to be all things to all people. They know what they're good at. They've got really strong relationships with larger healthcare centers, but they're there. They're there when you need them. They're there when you need to be in the ER. They're there when it's a minor surgery, when it's orthopedics, childbirth. So it's an incredibly special place, and I'm grateful for all the time that I spent there. I'm grateful for the relationships with the people that I formed there. I still stay in touch with them, and it's really wonderful, because the biggest thing I think that I loved about philanthropy is that you truly get to hear people's stories and what's important to them, and then how they want to use their resources to make a difference in the community. And whether that's naming a building or helping design a new maternity center, all these things that people do, that they're truly engaged, and they're grateful to have a hospital, and they're willing to support that. And that's incredibly special. But what I was feeling like is, after 15 years, I was ready to do something a little bit different, and my children were getting older. So I felt like I wanted to transition into a role that would still be actively involved in the community, but also give me a little more flexibility. People laugh, actually, when I was transitioning from the job, and they said, okay, so you're going from a steady job to being a realtor. And I said, yeah, I think it's something I've always been interested in, and I think I'll enjoy it. And they actually thought, they said, what are you thinking? And I said, I think it's time to make a change. So that's I transitioned about 4 years ago into real estate.
And the success story began pretty soon. You were obviously your office there at the Bean Group nominated you because you were top producer for this award, this regional award of the Realtors.
Yeah,
and I think that's pretty impressive credentials, especially when you've only been doing it for what, 3 years?
5 years or so.
5
Yeah,
years.
It's not only the performance standards being met, but it's also the community service aspect and how involved you are in the community. So I think that's one thing that I really admire about so many people in this community, is the level of involvement that's there. That people have their jobs and they have their families, but there's also such a strong level of commitment to the community organizations that matter to people. And I truly admire that in this community, and that's why I love to be a part of it.
Yeah. And now this year, as you move into this year, in mid-March, we're all hit with this COVID-19. And how does it affect a real estate agent, your company and your day to day, from mid March on? How did that
Yeah.
begin to affect you?
So I think initially, as with many different industries, we weren't really sure how it was going to affect us and what those implications would look like. When things started first shutting down, I had clients calling me saying, are you still going to be able to show my home? Am I still going to be able to sell my home? Am I still going to be able to list my home? And initially, actually, when the governor came out with his list, we were not deemed essential. And then within about 24 hours, the Association of Realtors in Concord had really petitioned strongly that because it is a financial transaction, it be deemed essential. So within 24 hours, that was turned around. But the biggest thing that we've done is try to move forward in a way that keeps everybody safe. I have in my car, I have Lysol wipes, I have boxes of gloves, I have booties, I have masks. And for all of us, and many of the realtors in this region, I can speak to people that I've had showings with, homes that I've showed. People are truly taking precautions and being respectful of the buyer and seller clients, because the reality is that some people do have to sell for whatever reason. They've had a job transition, or they've lost a job, or they're moving to the next stage of their life in some kind of retirement community. So it is the kind of thing where some people don't always have the choice as to when they want to sell. So what we do is we try to keep everybody as safe as possible. We try to limit the number of people going into the showings to just the decision makers. A lot of times people will bring friends and parents and other people. So we've tried to limit the decision makers going through. We've done, we basically did away with open houses for a number of months. They are starting to come back, but they're coming back in a limited fashion. But the biggest thing has been really focusing on trying to keep everybody safe, and following through on that every step of the way.
Did you find, were there some that were still just on the buyer side or the seller side that were just hesitant to move forward?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Because we've had people that were going to list their properties, and perhaps somebody in the family has a compromised immune system. The last thing they wanted to do is to expose a family member. So there was absolutely a number of listings for myself, and I know other agents that were going to be coming onto the market, and people opted to pull back at that point. And a lot of that was just based on not knowing what was going to happen, and not opening your home to people coming through when we didn't really have a full grasp on the situation. That's still a very real fear for people.
And then with all this happening, then how does the market move? What were the big developments, and just seeing how the market was reacting to this?
So I think initially in March and April, there was a lot of apprehension around what was going to happen. And everybody seemed to pull in for a little while, and things got very quiet for a short period of time. We didn't see the spring market like we normally would have seen in early April. But what we did see is shortly thereafter, towards the end of April, early May, things really start to take off in a way that we would expect in a very strong spring market. So although it did lag behind for a few months, it was there, and it was incredibly strong. Particularly from the seller side, I tend to work with sellers more than I do with buyers, but that right now is flip-flopped a little bit, because there are so many buyers out there that can't find the properties that they're looking for, that it truly is a seller's market, that if something comes on the market, it's typically going under contract within 48 hours, 3 to 5 days tops. Things may be sitting a little bit longer, but it's things are moving incredibly quickly, and it's a very competitive market for buyers.
Are you finding that you're seeing more buyers now than you have in the past from out of state?
Yeah, so what we're seeing, we obviously have our local people that are here and moving and wanting to find a place in the area, but we are seeing that there are a lot of people coming in from out of state. We see Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island. And what's happening is that, we live here. We love it here in the Monadnock region. We know all the reasons why we live here. But people that have been in other parts of the country that were hit a little bit harder don't necessarily enjoy the luxuries that we do in terms of having that access to outdoor space and freedom. I was actually talking with a gentleman from New York City last week, and he said, in order for me to go outside and go for a walk, I'm exposed to a minimum of 20 people going down my corridor and then getting in the elevator and then going by the bellman. So his perspective was, I want to be able to be somewhere where I can walk out the door and go for a walk and feel safe.
Yeah.
And those are things that when we live here in the Monadnock region, we take for granted that we can go outdoors and we can go for a walk and we can go for a hike and we can go for a kayak or a swim. And so that's been a huge appeal for people in terms of how they're living in their spaces and why I think New Hampshire has gained such a broad appeal so quickly in light of the COVID.
Yeah. And do you, if you had to start to do some crystal ball, I mean, it's tough because we were talking earlier, you can't get too far out, but do you see how do you see trends and where the future might be going over the next year?
So what I see happening is I see that people are really considering how they are using their homes and the way that their homes are set up and the amount of square footage. For some time, there was a trend to smaller homes, even tiny homes. But what we're finding now is that people are truly looking at their home in terms of, this is a home office, this is a home gym, this is a classroom in some settings. How many of us transitioned from March to bringing our children to school every day to now we have classrooms set up at home and we're doing that. So I think what we're going to see, and we have seen, is that people are really considering the space, the amount of square footage and how they use that space to make sure that if you do need to be home for an extended period of time, you have what you need available to be comfortable and safe and happy there. And that even translates into things like indoor-outdoor spaces, outdoor patios and kitchens, swimming pools, things that will allow you to stay in place and be safe and be happy and recreate. So an uptick in the demand for lake properties, an uptick in the demand for properties with some acreage, an uptick in the demand for places with privacy, access to great outdoor spaces. So that's really what we've seen. And I do think that trend will continue. I think that the pandemic has created an awareness of everybody in terms of where do I want to live and how do I want to live in my space.
I was muted there for a second. With it being a seller's market, I mean, are you seeing prices at record levels?
We are seeing prices. We are seeing things go for more than we would typically expect. We're seeing more cash offers, which tends to be competitive. We're seeing people waive contingencies that they may not have in other times. For instance, inspection contingencies or appraisal contingencies. So we're seeing people create offers that allow them to be more competitive in a market like this.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
Yeah.
And you were also saying of one of the things that people have always asked for, but now especially, is what type of internet service does the home have?
That is huge. That is a really big deal for people. And again, it's always been one of the questions, but I would say in the last 4 or 5 months, it's been critical because we do hear of companies like Google that are making the transition to allow people to work from home. And how many of us that do work locally do so much of our jobs from home that internet becomes critical. And it's not only critical for people working, it's critical for children having to do school. It's critical for so many reasons that people have actually not looked at homes because they didn't have the proper internet. So when we look at what some of the towns are doing in our area, Dublin, for instance, is moving towards fiber for the entire town. That's on slate to be done next July. Ringe is looking at a lot of options similar to the model that Chesterfield has followed. And that's been really successful for them. And that's been, that's really helped because that's what people need right now.
And how about just raw land? How's that doing? Same?
So there's definitely been an uptick there too in terms of people looking for larger parcels of land. Raw land, we've seen new construction start back up again in a way that it hasn't for a lot of years. And the reason for that is because there's not as much inventory. So people that maybe hadn't been building for some time, or even local builders picking back up and building to add to that inventory that's there. lumber prices are still higher than they had been. So that can be tough for people. It can be a bit of a deterrent, but that can also, if somebody has a vision and they want to build their dream home and they find that perfect piece of land, that's not going to be a deterrent. It's once they found their spot and they want to build, they can make that happen.
And if you could comment on rentals, how are we doing on rentals?
We are having a tough time with rentals in our area. There is, again, a shortage of inventory when it comes to rentals, whether you're looking for an apartment or looking for a single family home. When people are in transition between selling one house and buying another, we definitely have a shortage of rentals. They're there, but they're always scooped up very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I guess it all goes kind of hand in hand.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Like this, that is so robust right now in our particular area, can you comment from anecdotally on how it's with other folks, your bean groups all over a good portion of New England? Is it similar in Maine and other areas? What we're experiencing?
What we're experiencing, I think, is typical of the more rural areas, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Cities, I think, aren't necessarily feeling as much as we're feeling, as much as they are in the rural areas. But in talking to other agents in the area, we all work very closely together, whether it's Bean Group or some of the other agencies in the Monadnock region. We all work closely together. We all talk to one another. And we're definitely seeing those same trends. And even smaller cities like Portsmouth, it might not be Boston, but even markets like that, where we're seeing waterfront properties, oceanfront properties, things like that, where people are looking for that second home market has really had a boost because of this. And we have a lot of that in the Monadnock region as well.
And in terms of your current listings, any interesting ones that you've got right now?
I have a great one in Dublin. It's on about 45 acres, and It's got a beautiful pond, and it's got gorgeous views of Monadnock, and there's been significant interest in it. And again, it's been interest mainly from people that are not local, that are looking to relocate to the Monadnock region. There's other properties that I've had buyers looking at they're just scooped up very quickly because people know that there's going to be a demand on those type of properties. So we're really seeing that second home market increase.
I'm just putting up for you, Sadie, if anybody wants to reach Sadie about that property, she's or any of her other properties, you can go to her website. It's sadiehalliday.com. Well, I have to thank you, Sadie, because you're giving us an insight. I think people, again, everyone's always talking about real estate. I don't know how you not in any area, but certainly ours. It's always one of those top 5 things to discuss. So, but getting it from your perspective, right on the ground and out in the marketplace, I think is very helpful for people to hear. So we thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, we're glad we had the chance to have you on the show. Again, we'll put in our show notes Sadie's contact information if you would like to find out about properties or steers, for that matter. That can be answered. I'm sure a lot of animal questions can be answered as well.
Yeah.
Well, all the best to you, and we hope to see you soon, and stay well.
Likewise. Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that, Kim and I have talked about having someone on talking about the real estate market, because it's again affected. Everything's affected in some way, shape, or form since mid-March, and certainly that has too. I mean, I guess the good news from the real estate side is that there is a premium obviously going on right now because people are looking to have a place to go that's outside of where there is a lot of close contact, as Sadie was talking about, those folks in Manhattan that you can't get out of your own building without a lot of interaction with a lot of folks, and it's very hard. So having 40 acres or even 2 or 3 acres can make all the difference in the world. And I think we've all seen around the area, at least looking around, we've seen a lot of license plates that a lot more New York plates, a lot more Connecticut, New Jersey plates than we have seen previously. So it all rings true. Well, we thank Sadie for joining us today. A lot of great information for everyone, and we thank her. One thing we wanted to also, in terms of, we have a great show coming up on Thursday, and it is the acoustic duo Granite Peach. And they will be here. They will be our only guests. They will, and we'll be able to hear them perform. Wonderful music from this couple, and I think you're going to enjoy it. If you haven't heard them already, you may have, but I think you'll get to know them and appreciate them as much as we do. So it's going to be a great guest on Thursday. I don't have a slide for it, but I can tell you, poor Lynn Lambert last week had a broadband issue just as we were bringing her on the air. And Lynn, as you may recall, is the granddaughter of the founder of that little logo up in the corner this way, that place called the Park Theater. And it just happened right she just lost her internet connection, but we are assured that her internet connection will be back because she has so many wonderful photos to show and great stories to tell, not only about her grandfather, but her own experiences in the original Park Theater as the granddaughter of the founder. So I think that's going to be a great show. She's going to be on a week from Thursday, August 6th on the program. So with that, we are going to thank you for being with us. Again, if you ever have questions or thoughts, ideas, guest ideas, or if you'd like to sponsor, help underwrite our show, contact us through Park TV at theparktheater.org or call us here at the administration offices, 532-9300, 532-9300. And as we always say, we wish you to be safe, be healthy, be kind to others, be hopeful, because we can do this. We will see you on Thursday. And until then, I'm Steve Jackson. Thank you so much for joining us here on behalf of the Park Theater. We're so glad you were with us. We'll see you Thursday.